impressed about is that he's really clued up on the latest situation. You know, again, when he talked about mining, he spoke about nickel being a valuable resource in the Philippines, and you know, he knows what's needed. He knows the latest trends. He knows what the Philippines can do to make improvements. And then when it came to the issues of vaccinations in COVID, he said that the Philippines needs to be vaccinated. You know, he agrees with the current mindset. You know, he listens to the science. He's not somebody who disputes the science. He's somebody very much who listens to the science, has got his finger on the pulse. Now, going to Boy Abunda, I think his questioning was excellent. I think that he wasn't giving any political favors to a particular candidate. He wasn't biased whatsoever. You know, he gave everybody a fair chance. Well done to Boy Abunda and to ABS-CBN for this particular series. You know, people have been critical in the past, but let's look at this. You know, they have launched an excellent, fair series. They are interviewing the presidential candidates in a fair manner. They all have exactly the same amount of time. They are all interviewed in the style of Boy Abunda as well. And I believe this was an excellent interview. I believe that Bongbong Marcos was treated fairly, and I believe that he's done very well. I look forward to watching the other interviews as well. In the meantime, I'm looked at the comments on YouTube, and there are so many comments from the public supporting BBM for president. Some of these people had considered other candidates, but when they'd watched this interview, they've said their number one choice is BBM. You know, I know the official sort of voting period, campaign period hasn't actually started, but the fact is, you know, these kind of platforms are excellent because they give candidates a way to express themselves. It means the Filipino public clearly can listen very carefully to the different candidates and their responses. So I'd really like to applaud Boy Abunda, of course, ABS-CBN, and of course everyone behind this show. Whatever people say, whatever people criticize, let's look to the positives. Let's hope that BBM can continue in this direction, if you like, and let's hope that he will be given a fair chance by other interviewers, as much as Boy Abunda gave him a very fair chance, a very open platform and a very fair platform. Let's hope that any further interviews he has can be carried out in such a manner. I've really look carefully at each of these interviews that have happened so far. And what I can say is Senator Ping Lacson, although he's obviously a good potential candidate, the fact is he was very critical of the current administration and the current government. And you know what? I don't think this is a time for criticizing people, particularly with their COVID response. I think this is a time of coming up with practical solutions. This is a time of considering the right move. This is a time of giving praise where praise is due. Now, if you compare that to the interview of Boy Abunda with Bongbong Marcos, you can see that Bongbong Marcos is a real gentleman. You know, he answers the questions in a simple yet brilliant way. You know, he's not a politician who's trying to score points. He's not a politician who's trying to discredit the other candidates or speak badly or illy of the other candidates. He's a politician who really strives for unity. He's a politician who really cares about the Filipino people. I looked particularly at his first question on his response about mining. You know, President Duterte before ended the ban on mining. And rather than reintroducing this, BBM has said very clearly that we need to get out of this pandemic, and there needs to be a way of the government coming through this very difficult time and obviously raising much needed revenue. And he went on to say that as long as we do things carefully, we're not going to ban it. We're just going to do it carefully. We're going to look carefully at the impact. And if it creates revenue for the Philippine government, then why not? I think this is great because whereas the other interviewers would be criticizing the government and criticizing the president. I have to say, Bongbong Marcos, that isn't his platform. He's not there to criticize others. And you can hear very carefully that he answered the questions in such a way that the Filipino people can understand. Clearly, Bongbong Marcos is a man with a lot of experience, political experience. But not only that, he knows what is needed in the Philippines to bring the Philippines to the next level, to bring the Philippines forward. And again, the issue of unity, you know, this is so important. I love the fact that BBM is not critical of other candidates. He doesn't put other candidates down. He just basically basically says it how it is. He talks to the Filipino people in a language they can understand. No political rhetoric, no dodging questions or anything like that. You know, this is what I admire most about BBM, and I'm sure he's going to do incredibly well. The Filipino people genuinely want BBM to be the next president. Not all of them, and I understand the controversies, and I understand that some people maybe wouldn't want a Marcos within the palace. You know, I get that. People are able to make that free choice, and people are able to place their vote. But I don't believe it's up to any entity to cancel people out of that process. I believe it's up to the Filipino people to decide who they want to vote for president and vice president. And, you know, the fact is, I know there's a lot of support for BBM. He's a very experienced politician, and I believe internationally his English is excellent. You know, he was educated overseas. You know, there's the question over the Oxford and whether he has a degree, you know, but that's just nonsense. You know, that's just a sideline. That's just a way of trying to find any dirt or any issue regarding BBM, and people would want to find that. But the fact is, well, let's just put it this way. BBM is an educated man. You know, to run as a politician, as a president or a vice president, I believe that you need to be able to read and write as a minimum. Well, BBM can do a hell of a lot more than read and write. You know, he's a very educated man. He understands politics. He understands the Filipino people. You know, through decades, his family have seen the Philippines, have seen how the Philippines has changed over the years. You know, Marcos was responsible for really doing so much in terms of infrastructure. The Philippines Children's Hospital, the Philippine Heart Hospital, the Philippine International Convention Center, you know, all of these buildings are still standing, and they're still standing strong. They are legacies of the Marcos era, and nobody can take that away. Nobody can change that. You know, the fact is that so many people now are in the buildings that Marcos built, you know, and I'm sure that his son, BBM, will continue that legacy, and will also continue the Duterte legacy, you know, the rebuilding of the nation building. I have no doubt that BBM would continue with that nation building. So I'd like to say again, and I've said this before, I'd like to send my very best wishes to BBM. I'd like to send my very best wishes to Inday Sara Duterte. I'd like to send my best wishes to the Duterte family, and also to the Marcos family. You know, as I said, I'm not Filipino, but I believe I've got a right to freedom of speech. I believe I've got the right to comment just as much as the next person, and that's what I've done today. But all of this does bother me in a way. You know, it concerns me that there's all of this I don't know, kind of deciding whether somebody is suitable. And in the meantime, the Philippines is battling with COVID. You know, let's just wait until the next election and let the Filipino people decide. And instead, all of these nonsense petitions are cutting away from the real issues. And this is the battle against COVID and trying to make the Philippines great again. And the the consideration of BBM for Philippine pride, for unity, for making the Philippines proud, I believe is exactly what the Philippines needs at this time.